Right, probably best if we just get straight into this. Welcome back, everyone. Jack Reeve, Talk Norwich City. Norwich City have fallen to defeat once more in a truly torrid game against Millwall at the Den. The final score 1-0. Bradshaw, the scorer for Millwall after 18 minutes. And what looked to be a fairly strong foundation going into this festive period has been blown to bits. Norwich City falling in the table after what was I think it was one defeat in 8 leading into this festive period. And granted, performances weren't fully at the races. They seem to be improving to a degree. And I say that in a very loose sense. But I think as football fans, you're always trying to cling on to some form of hope just to get you through things. There has been no plan communicated by our sporting director, Ben Napper, so we can only assume that David Wagner is the man to take us forward. So with that knowledge, you have to try and grab onto some form of positivity, otherwise this season becomes really, really grim. And unfortunately, there's very few positives to cling on to now. It was a really disappointing 1-0 defeat away at West Brom on Boxing Day in a game that we rarely threatened. We were down to 10 men through Borja Sainz's stupidity and never really looked like getting anything from that game. Tonight's was a completely different match against the Millwall side, really struggling. I think they've won twice in about 12 games, really rotten recent form. And this felt like an opportunity to at least put some points on the board and prove something. And for David Wagner to go, you know what, all of these doubters, you're wrong. I've got Sargent back. I've basically got a fully fit squad now. Gibson's back in the mix. Grant Hanley's back in the mix. Very few excuses can be used. And what we were served up again was unfortunately really, really poor. I think the lineup made a few people's eyebrows raise. The centre-back pairing was completely changed. Ben Gibson and Danny Bart, the pairing. It meant that Kenny McLean could push forwards alongside Gabriel Sara, which, we've seen some degree of success with this season. There was, of course, going to be a change with Borja Sainz. Ona Hernandez came back into the side. The other confusing one was the fact that Johnny Rowe didn't start. It was Christian Fasnacht that came into the side. Now, I'll be the first to admit, I think Johnny Rowe has looked slightly fatigued at points since his return from injury, but he's been subbed at like 60 minutes, half time. He's rarely played 90 minutes since his return from injury. I can't actually remember if he has done. So you would have thought that fitness-wise he would be at the races. And to be honest, even if he was at 90%, you start Johnny Rowe in what was a must-win game for Norwich, as they all are at the moment, because we've afforded ourselves absolutely no cushion. So the team was disappointing. We huffed and we puffed in the first 15 minutes. There were a couple of chances. Ashley Barnes had one. Hwang went close with a really exciting free kick. And then it was the same old mistake. Sam McCallum caught way too high up the pitch. And I think, as we've seen with Sam McCallum over the past three or four games since he's come into the side, his reluctance to get back, it does seem at moments like he's just sort of jogging and going through the motions. He was caught out. Danny Bart couldn't get to it. Bradshaw slides in 1-0. But still, there's 70 minutes left on the clock at this point. And Norwich, barring the kind of last 5 minutes in that game, didn't threaten. And this is a Millwall side that have leaked a lot of goals this season, that are down near the relegation zone, desperate for something. We have just got a complete inability to break sides down when they're deep behind the ball. And this is a huge problem for David Wagner. We have given him so much of a chance. I think most would have liked to have seen Wagner sacked at the end of last season. That didn't happen. I think most would have wanted him sacked after probably Cardiff in the league. That would have given us a chance going into an international break. Ben Napper fresh into the mix. That hasn't happened. Ben Napper said he needs chance to see what this club is all about and the things that are going on, and that's fair enough. Coming into a new job, lots to take in. Napper deserved the chance to have a look at things and go, okay, this needs changing, we need to keep this. He put his faith in David Wagner, as did the board of directors at the football club. It does come to a point where you go, if you're not going to sack him, a plan has to be communicated and has to be communicated incredibly quickly, because multiple Norwich City fans, and I say multiple thousands of Norwich City fans, are quickly tuning out of this. It has become a football club sleepwalking into mediocrity. And I actually use the word average quite kindly, because we've been turgid at times over the past 12 months, actually further back than that, 18 months. And I think Norwich City fans actually have been incredibly patient. We were patient with Farker, and some would have wished that he was never sacked. I think it's always easy with the joy of hindsight to reevaluate. Dean Smith, people were fairly patient with. And now David Wagner. I mean, this isn't getting any better. And I think, to be fair to everyone, you know, as I said earlier in the video, you have to cling on to positivity in this game. Otherwise, you're left with hopelessness, and you're just staring into a void of nothingness. So, you know, wins against Huddersfield and QPR and Sheffield Wednesday, great wins in football, great fun. But we could all see through it. We could see that the performances weren't getting any better. And I think, yes, Sargent came on tonight, and look, he didn't start. But all excuses are gone now. We can't go, oh, we're without Sargent, or we can't go, oh, we're without our two best centre-backs, etc., etc. This is solely now on our head coach, who is not getting the best out of these players. But it feels incredibly frustrating as a fan of this football club and someone that talks online about us on a pretty much daily basis, to be going over the same arguments that we were having 6 months ago, and seemingly nothing has changed. Norwich, we know our level now. We are a mid-table side, maybe slightly below mid-table, who'll win a couple of games against teams below us, and then lose to some teams below us, but lose against the quality in this division. Southampton up next on New Year's Day, Russell Martin's side, 17 games unbeaten. That is going to be men against boys, I fear. Not only quality on the pitch, but tactically, Russell Martin's so much better than David Wagner. I think if you're David Wagner, you're looking at this and going, look, I've got nothing left to give. I've tried everything. I've tried different formations, different players within those formations. I've tried to go defensive. I've tried to go on the front foot. I can no longer progress with this side. And I think if you're Ben Napper, you know, he's been given a fair few months now to assess this and look at things. And I think actually has been given a fairly easy ride so far. He was, you know, listened to in the AGM, and Norwich City fans took that and listened to it and took it on board. But now we need to hear action. We need to see action. We need to hear what the plan is. Because, as I say, Norwich City are quickly sleepwalking into a position here that's really quite dangerous. If we think we're bad this season, imagine this side without a Gabriel Sauer or a Jonathan Rowe. They will inevitably be sold in the summer. And one, do you trust those at the football club to reinvest that money correctly? And two, it might just be gone on paying, you know, the ever increasing debts that we see. I'm still of the same opinion. I think we need to change the head coach. The club might think differently. They might be waiting for their long-term replacement, and that's fine, but let's hear it. And actually, is it fine? Because I think plenty of fans at the moment, this is becoming apathy rather than anger. So many people not turning up to games. You can only go so long without, you know, caring before you completely switch off. And that is the position that we're in at the moment. So without risking sounding like a broken record, it's time to hear from the football club, what is the plan going forwards? Because I'm really struggling to stay on board with what I'm seeing at the moment. Defeats after poor performances. It's not good enough. This is a side where, you know, we have quality and money has been spent and wages have been spent to a significant number, and we're not seeing the best out of them. Now, I'm not saying that Wagner is the only issue here, but performances like tonight do point towards a head coach that is drastically underperforming. And that is the one thing that we can change at this present time. A really disappointing display. I feel very sorry for those that made the trip on a Friday night, late at night, trains not running from Norwich. An incredibly disappointing evening. I would almost like to say it was a surprise, but it wasn't. These performances have been consistent, consistently poor. We've stumbled our way into this position at the moment where we were still only a few points off the playoffs, but I think we can say with real authority now that this side under the current management will not get into the playoffs. And that was the expectation set out by this board of directors at the start of the season, by Zoe Webber and her peers. So if Norwich City want to meet expectations this season, change has to be made, because it's not happening under the current managerial team. There we go. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. Take care, and let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Bye-bye.